Yeah, you're just gonna talk to her and have a conversation, and I'm gonna pretend like I'm not here.
You're not there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's weird to be looking back and forth.
Yeah, no. So y'all are just gonna have a conversation. It's all good. I'll take care of the rest.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
You can go for it whenever you're ready.
Yeah, you can just tell me about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm Jonathan Myers, and I'm the pastor here, newly at Second Chance Baptist Church. I'm new as pastor, but I've been here for over 20 years, so I've kind of grown up and in this ministry. And yes, we've worked with Homeward Bound for quite a while, and our ministries really fit together well. So yes.
How did you start working with Homeward Bound?
So we kind of have to go back to the church history. So Second Chance Baptist Church, it used to be Faith Temple Baptist Church. It's always been a little bitty. So I started coming here as soon as I moved out of my parents' house, so about around 20 years old, and just attending here. And it was a small, just kind of family church. The same couple of families made up the whole congregation. It was always the same people every Sunday. And our pastor at the time, Randall Turner, he was out on Northwest Highway, and he met a homeless guy named Slim, and they had an interaction. They went to breakfast, and he decided that's what God wanted us to do, and the direction the church would go. So he came and said, okay, we could come back next Sunday and have the same people. We'll learn the same Bible stories. Or if y'all are willing as a church, we're going to go out and meet people on the street and start working with people that everybody else seems to have forgotten. So that feels like I went way back, but that's where it started. And we would go out and we would meet with these people, and then it turns out that it gets cold in the winter, so we started bringing them back to church. And then we found out, well, most of them are there because some kind of substance issue is very common. So what can we do what's the next step? How can we help them more than just feeding them and praying with them? And so that's where we found Homeward Bound. And we found out that Homeward Bound, this was, like I said, over probably 20 years ago, I guess. Found out that Homeward Bound would accept anybody, and we could take them right in. And so we changed the name of the church to Second Chance to kind of match our ministry. And we've been working with Homeward Bound ever since. So the people we pick up on Sundays, because we still do that. We still pick up people straight off the street. And we say, hey, when you're ready to get some help, we will get you into Homeward Bound. And so we still do that as often as they want to. So that's our first step of relationship with Homeward Bound, is helping the people that we pick up off the street. And then somewhere along the line, we started a recovery night, which we do on Tuesday nights right now. And we asked Homeward Bound if they would let us come down, bring our vans and buses, and bring people to a faith-based recovery meeting. And so we've been doing that for probably 10 years now. Yep.
Yeah. So were you always a pastor from the start? When you started interacting with Homeward Bound, or?
No. For me, pastor is brand new. So just a few months into to being pastor here. Now, my personal history, I'm a preacher's kid, and so I've been around church life, and that's where I've always found my purpose and my worth, is in doing God's work in a church. And so I was not pastor at all. I was just part of the church, and I had the CDL to be able to drive the bus, and I've just always felt called to do something, right? I've never been able to just sit on the sidelines. So I've always been involved in the ministry with the recovery night and picking people up off the streets. So it's almost as long as I can remember now. And so then when our pastor retired about 2 years ago, then we had a little stretch without a pastor, and then the church called me to step up and be pastor. So that was just this year. So.
Nice. So how does it work? Like, how often do clients come here? Is it open for them anytime? How often does the bus go to Homeward Bound and pick them up? Like, what does an evening look like?
Yes. So when we do so we're a tiny church, so we don't we pretty much function on our Sunday morning, our Sunday activities, and then our only stable and constant midweek is our Tuesday night recovery ministry, and Homeward Bound is kind of the hub of that. So we go and pick up clients that are inpatients, they're in treatment, and we bring as many as want to come. But we're always open, and we encourage former clients to come back. In fact, several of the people that help facilitate the recovery meeting are all Homeward Bound alums. So it's just, I know Homeward Bound is a separate entity, but it feels like we we just kind of flow together. So yes, I'd have to even think back how many people that are part of the church now giving back are alum clients from Homeward Bound. There's several. So yes, people are always welcome. They come on Sundays, they come on Tuesday nights. It's really neat to see the ones that have just come out of Homeward Bound. They'll come back the next week, and they see the people that are still in treatment, and there's always this little reunion that this person's gone out and they've made it. They're staying clean and sober, and they're coming back, and so yeah, that's really good thing to see. Pretty much every Tuesday night there's some form of that happening. Yeah.
Is there like a memorable interaction you've had with any of the clients?
Oh man.
Probably many.
Yes, many. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. Yes, I mean there's so many, and they go both ways. So you hear. I'd say an in general thing is you see people, and there's a big contrast between the people we minister to on Sunday that we pick up off the street that are still in their addiction, they're still using. There's a hollowness, they're just trying to survive. A lot of times they come just to get some sleep. They'll sleep through the whole sermon, and we're okay with that as long as they're not disrupting things, because reality is they probably haven't slept for maybe days, and if this is a place where they feel safe and that they can go to sleep and nobody's going to abuse them or steal their stuff, then that's fine. But we see those people, and they're just trying to survive, and we want to let them know, God hasn't given up on them. We still care about them. And then to contrast that with the Homeward Bound interaction, when we bring people, it's the opposite. Their eyes are open, and it's like they're seeing the world brand new. They're coming out of a fog. They're hungry for a new way to live. They've survived on whatever their drug of choice is their whole life, and they're looking. So I love that. Yes, what kind of interactions? I love seeing them excited for a second chance, for being having a new opportunity. I also get on the other, that's a joyful thing to see. Sometimes I get reality checks from them too. Just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I kind of, it broke my heart to hear a guy, he came up for me to pray with him, and I was happy to do that. And I asked him how long he had been out on the streets, and he said as long as he could remember. And he kind of told me the story that the abuse and the drug use was from childhood. He doesn't remember life without it, and it's just so I've had lots of memorable interactions on both sides. You realize how severe the problem is, but also that there's hope. So yes.
Have you had any clients coming who recovered and are still in recovery, and they've been coming back more regularly?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, I have to rack my brain for years, but a long-term example is Charlie. He's one of our guys that basically leads the group sharing time, and he's a Homeward Bound alum. So he's probably got 7 or 8 years clean and sober, and he's always here and helps lead the groups, and is, he's a great success story of what life is like. He's married, has a family, and a successful business, and he's doing great. And then on the shorter term end, we've got a couple of folks, lady named Rose and a guy named Wayne, who are just, they're within 2 or 3 months out of Homeward Bound, and they're here every time. And they're giving back in smaller ways. They're not, to a level where they want to be sharing and leading in group times, but they're using Second Chances as their, support network, not just going to an AA meeting, but, they can come here and we give them the spiritual side of it, and the family, kind of community that you get from the church. So yeah, we often see people come, and the hope is that those, as we help them get stable in the real world, then they do gain the confidence and start to give back. I always tell people that God has a purpose for your life, and it's not just to be clean and sober, right? Sometimes that's all they can see is, I just gotta stop using. Yes, but man, then the world opens up. Like, God has a purpose for you, and so don't stop at just going to meetings. Go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps, the whole deal. But then God has a whole purpose for you to impact the world in a positive way. So yeah, we're always trying to get people to reach and move past that.
That's really nice, thank you. I was reading this paper actually the other day, which talked about self-redemption and how those in recovery who had narratives of self-redemption were more likely to have long-term sobriety versus people who didn't. And so I was having this conversation with my boss, and we were talking about how religion, and especially Baptists, I think, teach a lot about self-redemption. Does that come up a lot in your sermons, or in the way that people talk about their stories as they're going through recovery?
Well, I'll start by saying that's a different term for me. To hear self-redemption is that's kind of new. So
yeah, I think the way they defined it was that after a negative event, you think of it as developing a positive personality change in you. So when they think about the last drink they had, they thought about it as something that led, it was a negative event that led to something positive happening by them getting back up again, or by having that willpower to change, like a very significant personality change. Yeah, yes. And it might not have, it was just a thought.
No, that's, yeah, I definitely think that, and definitely we talk about that idea of things that seem like such tragedies or terrible decisions, as a springboard to this whole entirely new life, and to draw from Scripture. That's what Joseph said about his brothers. So his brothers, the story is they sold him they were jealous and they hated him and they sold him into slavery. Well, you fast forward the story, and he rises to power in Egypt and is able to save not only his brothers, but the whole nation. And he says, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And so that concept I think is happening in everybody's life. There's definitely forces of evil, external and in our own hearts, that cause us to be in these tragic situations. But God, we believe that God hasn't, as long as you're breathing, God hasn't given up on you. And he's going to use those times, those situations to draw you to him and into a life that has meaning, right? And so, yes, you'll hear a lot of times people will, the ones that are further in their recovery, they'll say, I'm thankful for the bottom, when I hit rock bottom, because that was when I had to change things. I realized that I had to have this radical change. I will say, with just we're definitely believers in the self-redemption, at least that term. The way you explained it, I agree with completely. But we're definitely a believer that God has to be the one that makes the change in us, right? As opposed to, it's my own will, it's my self-will. And I don't think that's quite what you meant, but we definitely tell people, look, if you one of the guys that was in recovery for a long time, he always said, you already leaned on your own understanding and your own ways of doing things, and it got you living on the street in a cardboard box. So you need to lean on something higher than you. So definitely redemption, definitely all those things, but it has to come from more than just self, is what I would say.
That's true. One of the sermons that I did attend, that one of the nights I came, was a lot about powerlessness, and I think that's ties into what you were saying. Could you talk about that a little bit? I found that really interesting, and I saw how a lot of the clients were really connecting with that sermon in particular.
Yes, powerlessness, for sure. That that's one of our topics. So when we have about 8 or 10 different topics that we rotate, and we kind of try to speak on them from a different angle. But yes, embracing powerlessness I think is a key part of recovery and really all of life. I think that steps in recovery tie into everything. But it's the idea that my life is not about me. If I live my entire life trying to make myself happy or pursue pleasure or comfort, there's always going to be an emptiness. And so then when you realize that emptiness, that's where the powerlessness comes in, and you realize, look, I can't define my own purpose. God has given me a purpose. It's up for me to discover it. And the only way you do that is by relinquishing your, this surrender. I'm not in control. I thought I was in control. These things happened. That's not what I wanted. I made these decisions. They didn't lead me where I wanted to be. And when you embrace powerlessness, like I'm not in control of it, then where does the power come from? And that's where it's a surrender to your higher power. It's a surrender to God, and then once it's very, how do I explain it? To me, it's liberating to realize that I don't have to have the perfect answers. There's somebody stronger and smarter than me that has the answers and is wanting to guide me to those. So then I don't have to feel the pressure of we'll use the metaphor of children. I don't have to have the pressure of adulthood that I have to run everything. I can just be God's child, and I can have the freedom of a child that He's got the power, He's gonna take care of things, He's gonna lead me the right way. And I think that's why the Bible calls us children of God, right? It says you can't enter the kingdom of heaven unless you become like a child. And a lot of people think that's being innocent. I don't. I think that is realizing that you're helpless. And so once we realize we're powerless, then we can surrender to a God that loves us and does have the power to do all the things we couldn't do for ourselves. So you almost launched me into a sermon there. That was...
Thank you. That was really good. It was a good start to my day.
Okay.
It's a good reminder. So what would you tell someone who is struggling with addiction and who's struggling to get help?
Well, I would just smile. People come to me and they tell me these terrible situations they're in, and I can't help, it seems so, I hope I don't come across wrong, but I always smile, because once you realize where you're at, then that's the start for changing. So just the fact that people are struggling and they're looking for help, they're talking to me, they're coming to Homeward Bound, hey, you've already taken the step in the right direction. and you're talking to me. God hasn't given up on you. You're reaching out to people that haven't given up on you. Like, just that interaction is hope right there. And so from then, I would just say, don't give up. There are people that care about you. God hasn't given up on you. He's got a plan for you. And then you just get to the concrete steps. How do I get you? Is it a substance abuse that's holding you back? Let's get you to treatment. Let's get you in a place where, let's take you to Homeward Bound. I'll come pick you up and give you a ride. That's what we do for our people on the streets. They come in on Sunday. They say, I'm ready to do something different. I say, okay, I'll call Homeward Bound and tell them that I'm going to bring somebody in, and I make an appointment to pick them up under a bridge or wherever they're at, and we take them. It's one thing to pray and say encouraging things with people, but you also have to go get in your car and go pick them up and and do the work and take them there. So yeah, I would say don't give up. There is absolutely hope, and God does miracles every day. This is the first day of the rest of your life. All the cliches. So, but yeah, just try to love them and let them know there's hope.
So, what about yourself? How do you feel now, like ever since you've started working with Homeward Bound, which has been a very long time? Do you feel like, how has that changed to yourself or your perspectives or your own spirituality?
I don't know that I would say there's a major change. It's comforting, and it's to know that, like, since I started working with Homeward Bound has always been there. And that's you're not alone. You're not the only person that cares about these people out there. And just having the stability of, you have these anchors in life that that you can, the waves can take you places, but you can come back to these things. And so I've definitely felt that with Homeward Bound, that it's one of those, it's been a constant for us. And you don't know, sometimes you don't know how good things are until they're gone, right? That's another cliche. You don't know what you have till you lose it. But if we didn't have Homeward Bound to take people to that were ready to get help, I'm sure there's other organizations, but I don't know what they are. I would have to go out and find and rebuild relationships with some new group, and I haven't had to do that for a long, long time. So well, I have to do math now. So let's see. Late, probably early, right at 20 years, I would say. So I started coming to the church in the late 90s, and then was here a couple of years before we had this big shift to working with the homeless and people on the streets. And so that put us right around 2000, and then we immediately, or very quickly, found Homeward Bound. So somewhere right around there. Yeah, 20 years.
Thank you so much. Would you like to end off by saying, adding anything else about your church, or about Homeward Bound? Anything you'd like to be included?
I don't think so. Well, I'll ramble a little because I can ramble about things, but yeah, I feel, I know I'm where God wants me to be. I know I'm a Bible believer, and I know that God wants me to be doing good work. I know that involves helping my fellow man. Greatest commandment is love God. The second is love man, and they go hand in hand. And so I know I'm where God wants me to be. I know this church fulfills that purpose. Even though we're small, we do it the best we can. And I know Homeward Bound is always there for us to help on the side of the clinical detox and all of the things that we can't do. And so it's really a great partnership. So I'm really thankful, and I don't think none of that's an accident. God's in control of everything. He's allowed Homeward Bound to develop and become what it has become, and Second Chance, and he knew that it was going to be a harmonious thing right from the beginning. So I'm happy to be involved in that. So thank you.
Thank you so much.